Hello everyone and welcome to another video in this series that's called the Excel to SQL series or Master SQL using Excel series. So in the previous videos we have seen all the basic keywords that we need to write a simple query. We've started from select and we've gone all the way till order by. So essentially if you have seen all the videos thus far, you should be able to um, pick up any number of columns you like, filter it, aggregate the numbers if needed, and then sort them in the order that you desire. Okay, so you should be capable enough to do that, and that will also cover a lot of your basic SQL questions as well. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be looking at an interesting topic, a difference, where we are going to be understanding the difference between where and having. Okay, so I don't think we can really do like an equivalent, but let me try and explain what we have been trying to do over here. Okay, so before that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I request you to please do subscribe to the channel, so that will motivate me to make more videos around data analysis and data cleaning. Alright, so let's continue with the video. Now if you see in our pivot, we had discussed about the difference between an aggregated column and a simple value column that we take from from the raw data set. Okay, so in this case, if you're seeing in this pivot table, you're seeing these are aggregated columns. Okay, because we are taking sum of NA and sum of global sales. Okay, let me get the field list real quick. Yeah, so in this case, as you can see, the NA and global sales are in the values, which automatically goes into an aggregated function. Okay, if you bring the same thing here, now these become row values. Okay, these become row values for every row that is there in the data set itself. Okay, so so that's the major difference between an aggregated column and just a value column. Okay, how are these values broken out like this? It is dependent on the other dimensions, right? As it's a fact. Now this fact, let's say 82.53 in global sales, is defined by many things. It's defined by the name of the game, the platform, the year of release, genre of release, publisher, right? It's dependent on these 5 columns. But we have only taken one, which is action, and which is why everything is then broken down. Okay, so that's how this is going to be. So what we are going to essentially understand is, now if I have to filter this, right, let's say if I go for value filters here, and if I do, let's say you need at least one field in the values to apply a value filter. Okay, so we do not have value filters here. Okay, so we cannot filter this way. So how are we going to filter this? We are going to commit as a label filter, right? Let's see, is greater than genre. Okay, but this goes to the dimension over here. So therefore we cannot filter this the way we actually want to filter as a value, right? Because we are not treating this as a value yet. Okay, we are not treating this as a value. Okay, and even if it does not work as a label filter, because this is considered as a label and this ideally should be considered as a value, but you can definitely filter it over here, right? So you can come here, this becomes a label filter here. So label filter greater than, see, label filter global sales is greater than, let's say, 10. Okay, so now I have all the values where global sales is greater than 10. Okay, but remember that this is a label filter and this is not a value filter. Okay, just because it has numbers, just because it's a fact, does not mean that you can filter it as a value in this case, because it's not been treated as a value itself. Okay, so it's that applies to the same way here as well. But now if I bring this back over here, okay, now you see that you do not have filter options over here. Okay, and if you come here and if you come to value filters, you can see now you have two options, sum of NA sales and sum of global sales. Why? Because we have now added those two columns under values and now this is getting treated as a value. Okay, and in this case now the filter that you'll have to add is also different. So let's say we can add greater than 300, let's say. Okay, so see, you have now only two values that match this, right? We can actually go a little lower. Let's go 150 because you'll get more values. Yeah. Okay, so you can see that there is a difference. There is definitely a difference in the first filtration that we did, where we just filtered this as a label, versus this where we are filtering it as a value. Okay, it's only because of the way it is being treated. Okay, so this kind of summarizes the difference that we are going to see in this as well, in the where versus having clause. Okay, so do keep in mind as to how this global sales column changed when it was in the rows, when it was just as a column that we have selected like we do in the select statement, versus when it is aggregated under an aggregate function. Okay, so do keep this in mind because we will use the same concept over here. Okay, now if you see, I have a query over here written which is saying select name, platform, year of release, and global sales. I have just taken the global sales as is from DBO video game sales, where global sales is greater than 20. Okay, so if I run this, so this is what I'm getting. Okay, remember in this case global sales is not an aggregated function. Global sales is just a column I have selected as is. Okay, so essentially you can say it's being treated as a label. Okay, like we saw it that we could not treat it, we cannot filter it as a value, so we filter it as a label. Right, we're filtering it as a label. Now that's what's happening over here as well, where global sales is greater than 20. Okay, but now if I have to change this, let's say I want to now turn this into sum of global sales. Okay, actually no, let's write this separately so that you can see the difference. I'm just going to start a fresh one. Yeah, so if I come here and I write sum of global sales, okay, now what will happen is a group by will come. Okay, because we have an aggregate function, and I'm just going to take these dimensions as this. Boom. Okay, and this will also change, right, because this is sum of global sales now and not global sales. If I run this, you can see that we have an error. Okay, so it's saying an aggregate may not appear in the where unless it is in a subquery contained and having and all that. Okay, there's an error over here, which basically means that this query that we have written where sum of global sales is greater than 20 is wrong. And why is that? If you realize, the filters over here changed, right? When we did the value filter over here, we put sum of NA sales is greater than 150. But when we brought the global sales here, what was the filter we added? The label filter is still there, by the way. See this, is greater than 10. So the filters are completely different. Why is that? Because the numbers undergo a transformation, right? When you are using it as a column, your range of values change. But when you're aggregating it, the range of values change. So what's between 10 and 90 over here will become 200 to 1000 after aggregation. Okay, and even the column does not remain the same, right? Because this gets treated as a label column, whereas this becomes an aggregated column. So the same problem pops up over here as well. Okay, so if you are looking at it from the language perspective, you have a select, you have a from, you've written a where, and then you've put a group by. Okay, this should ideally work, but this does not work. Why? Because of the exact reason that I just showed you in the difference that the column undergoes when it becomes an aggregated function. Okay, even this filter is not valid. Why? Because I told you the number range changes. It's not 10 to 90 or 10 to 100. It's now maybe 100 to 500 or 100 to 900. Okay, because everything gets aggregated. Okay, so what do you do in such a case? So first of all, let's remove this where, because this is our problem. If you run this as is, now you're getting sum of global sales. Correct? The numbers that are shown over here will be different. Why? Because of the dimensions. Okay, so what did we take in this one? We took only genre. Okay, so if I remove the name and just put, let's say, platform and year of release. Okay, Of course, a disclaimer over here that the range numbers that I mentioned was it could be an example case. In this case though, the number of the range definitely changed in the way from 10 to 100 to in this case 100 to like maybe 10 to 300 or something like that, right? That's because of this one. But if you add more dimensions, then this also reduces along with it. Okay, the range also changes according to the number of dimensions because the number gets broken down by the number of dimensions you're adding. Okay, so if you're saying action 635, now suddenly if you add another platform, now that same action is broken down into all these, and so your range of value also changes. Okay, so just to bringing that point ahead. Now if you see here, we have platform of release, we have this, and we have the summation of the columns. All right, so let's take it by what should we let's remove let's keep this as is for now, but I want to filter this data anyway, right? I want to filter this data. So we've seen that the where does not work, where sum of global sales greater than something does not work. So in such a case, what do you do? In such a case, the way of filtering also becomes different, just like we saw it in Excel. Although it's very one dimensional in the UI, where you're just going and hitting it, but you see the treatment that the software does in terms of understanding that this is an aggregated column versus this is a straight column that's pulled out of the data set. So in the same way, to tackle this, you have to use another keyword called having. Okay, so this having keyword came in the error as well. If you actually go back to the video and see, you can actually see that keyword that's come. So essentially you have to use the having keyword to filter an aggregated column. Okay, so if I say having sum of global sales, let's say greater than equal to 20. Okay, now if I run this, now you can see this query ran. Okay, so you can see the difference in this in both of these itself, where here global sales is not an aggregated column and you could use a where and just filter it by the number, whereas here this is an aggregated column now, and if you want to filter by the numbers, by the aggregated column numbers, then you cannot be using the where when it is aggregated. You have to use having, and then you have to specify the condition that you want to filter for, and this having will come after the group by. So the way to read this is you have to say select from group by this having, then the aggregated column name and your condition that you want to filter for. Okay, so this is a very fundamental understanding that we need to create to understand if you want to filter by an aggregated column versus if you want to filter for a straight label column. So this essentially becomes a label column. Okay, although it's got a numerical data type which is different, but the way the column is treated is as a label column itself. Okay, that's because you can just directly use the where and filter by those numbers. But now this column does not remain the same. It comes from this column. This is the source of it, but this column is now transformed because we have added an aggregated function. And once you add an aggregated function, the way you filter that particular column, if you want to filter by that particular column, the way you do that also changes. All right, so this is where you need to understand the difference between where and having. Okay, so where cannot aggregate, you cannot aggregate aggregated columns, the ones having some average count, using where. Okay, and that's where it throws an error. So you have to use a having, which is let's say the alternative to the where, but it works only for aggregated columns. Okay, so you cannot use a having for this one. You cannot say select this from this having global sales greater than 20. No, it's not going to work like that. Okay, if you want to filter this as the label column or as the column as is, then you use where. But if you are going to filter by an aggregated column, then you have to use having. All right. So I hope this video was clear. It's a very fundamental question, very commonly asked in early experience roles, SQL interviews, and things like that. So I hope this was very clear to you. Let me know if this was helpful in your interviews or at your workplace. Do like this video, do comment on it, and let me know what other kinds of videos should I make on this channel. And please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, so that I can make more such videos for you all. All right. Until the next video, I'd say thank you so much for watching and have a good day.